This time on Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions, I want to show you my Petcock. And demonetized. G'day everybody and welcome back. Yes, last episode we overhauled the fuel tank, put a chemical liner in it essentially. So we need to get this fuel tap back on the road, ready to go back into the tank. Why it's called a Petcock, I think that's an American term, to be honest. Which is funny because pet obviously comes from petrol and they call it gas. But how do they work? First, this one is doesn't have an off position. So all we have is on where it is currently, prime, which basically bypasses the vacuum system on this particular fuel tap, and then we have the reserve position. So it's multifunction, and the way it's designed to operate is that it only allows petrol to flow down to the carburetors when the engine's running and you have a vacuum condition. So there's two sides to the tap. There's the liquid valve side, and then there's the vacuum valve side. So how does it work? This is a little vacuum generator from my brake bleeding kit, and if we should be able to blow through this hole when it's in the prime position with no restriction. So that works fine. If we turn to on, we shouldn't be able to blow through that. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can slightly. And again on reserve. And again it's leaking, but not as bad as it is in the on position. So if we plug generate a vacuum in that diaphragm in there, now we have an unrestricted flow. And it's bleeding off. And we're back down to near zero flow. So that's how it works. It uses a vacuum diaphragm to allow the fuel to flow into the valve, and then the valve directs it. So why are they a pain in the neck? Because they leak, essentially. And if you think back to when the very first episode, I just noticed that there was an inline valve. It almost looked like it was off a mower, little ball valve, that somebody's obviously fitted in line because this thing would have been leaking. And when they stopped the bike, it would have continued to hold head pressure on the carburetors, bled over. If it was lying on a side stand or something, it may have bled over the floats. If there happens to be an open inlet valve in front of it, it's going to fill your sump full of petrol. So it's important that they work properly. So let's just dig into the meat of her. I bought a kit off eBay that we'll put through this thing. Right now I'm just opening the liquid side. And out she comes. So there is a little wave washer there, which is essentially a spring, holds tension on the valve itself and makes sure that it can maintains pressure against the seal. Let's open up the back of this and have a look at what we can see in there. So you can sort of see the inner gubbins. And there's our vacuum diaphragm. Alright, so let's have a look at what makes it tick. This is the diaphragm from the back of the tap, and it's very fragile, very thin very thin rubber, and it has a seal on here, and then when you draw the vacuum behind that diaphragm, it sucks down on that plunger, draws it away because of pressure differential. We've got atmospheric here, and then we go below atmospheric there, and that lifts that off its seat. So there's two inlet ports on this particular valve. We have the normal run position, which resides up in here below this filter, and then there's the shorter tube, which is the reserve fuel tank position. So in normal run mode, the fuel would enter the valve via this port, and it comes across and straight back into this port via that cast recess in there. So it interconnects directly. This other part isn't in play. It just interconnects directly, port A to port B, so here to here. Then when the diaphragm is lifted, the fuel is able to actually bypass that that seat, that seal there, and then make its way back out here, which interconnects with that port, and that's the port that goes to your carburetor. So in the normal run position, there is no function of that particular hole. The fuel just goes from the top to the middle, back into the back of this port and out of there. When you're in the prime position, where you're wanting to, you're starting your bike, you don't have a vacuum applied, so theoretically this seal is still seated against there and not allowing the fuel through. This curved port here comes into play. So it connects the reserve, which is this side of the valve. There's a lower pipe in there. It connects the reserve side directly to the outlet. And that's the only time that this has fuel running into it from that direction. Then when you put it to the reserve position, it connects this and this together again by that straight bit of machine section there, cast section there, that port. So on is fuel in, comes down from the tall tube, so your fuel in your tank comes down to here until it hits the top of that tube, and then it runs out. Then you would switch over to reserve and it would run down to the lower pipe. So in your normal run position, fuel comes down to here, out of here, into there, back out of here into your carburetor. In prime, it just simply connects the reserve port directly to the outlet, to your carburetor, so it bypasses the vacuum system. And then when you're in reserve on the switch, it's running from this tube, from there into there, and then via the vacuum back into this section off to your carburetors. Now, eagle-eyed, look at that. That is a deep groove. So we're going to have petrol bypassing that all the time. And that's a bad thing, because whatever position it's in, it's going to be flooding this port here, and if it happens to align with another port that's not meant to have fuel, then it will flood. Yeah, so that is very deep, and that is essentially toast. Because my plan here was to simply clean it, take this this face here and lap it on a piece of fine wet and dry on a bit of glass or something, and reinstate a nice flat machine surface there, and put it together with a new kit, and Bob's your uncle. But we've been scuppered, so this is going to be the shortest video you've ever seen on the GS1000, but that's where I'm going to have to end it. I'll have to try and find another fuel tap, I think. I don't want to go using JB Weld or anything like that, so please don't comment on that. And it is cast pot metal, so we don't want to try and weld it. and there's too much material to have to disappear out of there because of the thickness of that face there, to go and put it in a lathe and machine it. So we're going to have to find another tap. Bugger. Never mind. Thanks for watching. If you've got a GS1000 fuel tap kicking around under the bench that might have a valve that doesn't look like that, give us a shout. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll catch you next time on Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Bye for now.